بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Of community conversations, and I'm going to ask Yusuf to run and just close the door so we can contain the discussion. Akhuna Louei, Professor Louei, is not a person that does not need an introduction, especially because he talked already twice before at this masjid, and soon enough he's going to become part of the furniture, so it's too late for him. He doesn't know that I'm secretly hooking him into the wellness crew, mashallah. He happens to be my neighbor, and I consider myself very lucky. I grew up with this man. He has a lot of dark secrets on me and vice versa, so that we'll keep, inshallah, and not share with anybody else. But really, يعني من لا يشكر الله لا يشكر الناس لا يشكر الله. Those who are not thankful to people are never truly grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that man deserves a lot of thanks. He's one of the sweetest persons I know, purest hearts, and I don't want to break his back right now. But I know how much energy went into this. And I consider myself lucky because when I talk to speakers and we set up these conversations and we discuss the topics, I get hints of what will be covered. And truly, I think you're in for a treat today, inshallah. The topic is about coaching. And coaching may not mean much to people. Inshallah, he'll define it. But to me, it's trying to become the best that we can become. That's what a coach does, is help you unlock what's within you already. Typically, it's in a sports setting, but it can be in a knowledge setting, in a financial setting. And Louei will be talking about it from a life setting, and specifically how you can coach yourself and how you can have these transformational conversations. We all want to build trust. We want to all build rapport. We want to ask the right type of questions, but sometimes we don't know how. Well, Akhuna Louei will use the topic to convey that to us, and the biggest treat is the ahadith that will come your way when you realize that this is not fluff, this is what Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to do. So he's going to close the loop on that. I'm very excited. Jazakumullah khair, Professor Louei Ali, and the stage is yours.
I love you too. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm hoping that you can relax a little bit because I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want to make sure that you can tap into that creative mind that you have. Okay? I want you to think of a challenge that you're facing right now. Don't tell me, just to yourself, think of a challenge that you're facing right now. I'll give you some time. What outcome do you want? If that challenge is to be resolved, how would things look like? What's the outcome that you're hoping to accomplish as a result of resolving this challenge? Think again. I want you to think 6 months down the road where you are successful. What would success look like 6 months from now? Just suppose that we are living in the future and things are exactly the way that you want it. What does it look like? Is there anything that you have not considered? Think, use your creative mind. What else have you not considered? What else didn't you think about? Does anyone want to volunteer what they felt? What did it feel like? Please.
So the challenge that I'm facing right now is to choose between two paths, right? So for example, just to give you an example, so the career choices, the career path. So now the challenge that I have at this moment in my, at this point in my life, what is the best or most appropriate career path according to my skill set? That's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
One right path that is appropriate for me. So selecting, choosing between the option 1 and option 2.
Yeah.
That's the outcome that I want. To be more focused on that one. What would success would look like 6 months from now? To be honest, I don't. Success would look like 6 months from now. I would say be on the right track to be able to follow that path, at least find out the path would be the success for me down the road, 6 months from now.
So to gain clarity over, makes sense.
Exactly.
And when I asked you, can you think of something that you have not thought about or not considered? You don't have to share anything personal.
So the process itself.
Uh-huh.
So the process, so how do I decide between these two things? So kind of a process that would give me an explicit idea about choosing which path is good for me.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing, because I want to mention this to you. Have you noticed that I have not given you any advice? Have you noticed I did not give you any solutions? I did not lecture you. I began with asking a few questions. I was not trying to fix your life for you. Simply, I asked a few questions, and I want to say welcome to coaching. That was a sample of what a coaching session could be like, which is simply to ask questions. Now, I want to put this picture on because I want to share with you a story that took place back in 2016. I was responsible for account management for one of my customers. And they told me, Louei, you better go and meet Eddie. He's a very influential person. You need to get to know him. And my job is to build relationships with these folks. Now, every time I go to Eddie, honestly, he would look at me like this, as if I'm the last person he wants to see. He gets so many salespeople visiting him, and I'm just another sales guy to him. Now, I had to think outside the box. I had to think differently. So one day I go to Eddie and I said, listen, Eddie, I'm sure you take breaks. Give me 5 minutes. We can exchange few ideas. We can exchange business cards. I promise you, I will not talk about business. I will talk about life. He smiled. He allowed me in. The 5 minutes turned into 1 hour. Eddie and we became friends. Now, here's what happened. One time, Eddie looks at me and he says, Louei, I don't think you're a good sales guy. That's exactly what he said. I'm like, what do you mean? Is this supposed to be a compliment? Why? He said, I think you should be a coach. And that's where this one came. I'm like, coach? What do you mean? Because the first thing that comes to mind when I think of coaching, I'm thinking of sports. You know, baseball, basketball, and you coach a team. He said, no. It's a whole different industry. Go and do some research. And I did. And I found a school in British Columbia called Ericsson. I picked up the phone and I called Ericsson. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. And someone picked up the phone at 7 in the morning. And I said, listen, I've been doing some research. I love this thing. And I'm hoping that you would say this final thing that would push me over the edge. And I would say, yes, I'd like to sign a contract with you. What would you say? She paused. And then she asked me, if she was an ordinary salesperson, here's what she would have said. We have 45,000 students, and we have locations across 40 countries. We've been in business since 1983. If you sign up before the end of this conversation, I'm going to give you 75% off. That's what a typical sales call might go like, which is not very successful, not very good. She didn't do that. Here's what she asked me. Why is this important to you? You see what she's doing? She's getting in touch with this, with the core. Decisions that come from the heart are the ones that stick. Why is this important to you? And I had to pause for a minute. That's not what I expected. So I told her about the conversation I had with Eddie. I told her about the research I have done. And then she asked something else that's more interesting. Do you have a family? Yes, I have a wife and 4 kids. And she said, do it for them. What do you mean? You would be the one who benefits the most from this education, and then those who are closest to you. I say, do it for your family. Do you think I signed up? Do you think I signed up? Did she convince me? She was in touch with this. She was in touch with the inside, and she did a phenomenal job. And that's what started me on the journey of coaching. I went through the education. It took me a couple of years. But here's the agenda for today. I just want to make sure that we're clear on the expectation. We're going to talk a little bit about coaching and why it's different. And trust me, it will not be boring. It's not going to be boring. We need to address the brain. I have some very interesting information I will share with you about the brain. What's a coaching conversation? What would be the elements that would make a coaching conversation? And the last one, this is a treat. Beyond amazing, some of the ahadith of Rasulullah, where he has proven to us that he is the best coach to ever walk the face of the earth. And I will show you that. Now, I just want to show you a bit of history. How did people get promoted before? If you want to promote someone, whom would you promote? Let's say 70 years ago. Why would you promote somebody? Hard work. What else? Yes? Sorry? They are creative. So simply, they work hard, they are creative. It sounds to me as if you're saying people who have answers. They become the go-to person. They become the SME, subject matter expert. So that's why you promote them. You're promoting a culture of, if you have all the answers, share. So now I promote that individual. The way I judge you now is by how much you listen. Hey, listen, I was promoted because I know what I'm talking about, so you better listen to me. Is this giving an echo? Okay, good, okay. And now, since I'm evaluating you by how much you listen, I'm not creating the next generation of leaders, I'm creating the next generation of followers. It becomes like a command and control. I tell you what to do, you do it, good for you, well done. Until coaching came to the arena, and coaching is a little different. Let me show you, because you're thinking now, counseling, consulting, training, mentoring, how does it differ? Let's have a look. If I'm talking consulting, you invite a consultant into your business because you have a problem. There's a gap where you are and where you want to be. A consultant would ask you a lot of questions and would try to position a solution for the problem. So they what? They tell you what to do. A consultant will give you a report at the end and they will tell you what to do. If I tell you counseling, if two people are having a troubled relationship, the counselor will focus on what? The problem. Tell me about your problems. How long has it been? We'll talk about the past. And eventually, what do? Okay, now I come to a resolution. The solution to your problem is this. So it's again, show and tell. They tell you what to do. If somebody becomes your mentor, what happens? You become their protege, and the mentor is someone that you want to walk their footsteps. You enjoy what they did, and you enjoy the success that they've had, and you want to have the same success. So they become your mentor, and eventually they tell you, here's how you need to do it. Education, classroom. Okay, this is supposed to be like a classroom and a teacher right here. They, again, in a classroom setting, they sit and they tell you what you need to do. Now, it's again, show and tell. Until we have coaching, and coaching is different. And let me show you, it's solution focused. We're not gonna continue to talk about the problem. We will continue to talk about the solution. I want you to think of the first presentation that we did about positive change and what psychology says. Whatever you focus on, you see more of. So if I continue to talk about the problem and the problem and the problem, I will continue to see just the problem. But if I focus on what can I possibly do, I focus on the solution, I begin to see possibilities. And that's where the difference is. So think of coaching, these four things, how it would be different from the four elements I showed you before. Now, these are called Ericksonian principles. And I think they stem somehow from Islamic education. Sheikh Adnan was doing tazkiyah and also the halaqa for aqidah, and he was mentioning nobody is more human than anybody else. We're all human at the end of the day. So the first principle is we are okay, we are whole. Let me explain. If I'm sitting with someone and I'm coaching them and I discover that they have suicide tendencies, I am not qualified to work with them. I would say you need to go and work with a psychologist, psychiatrist, a therapist, not me. So the first condition, we are whole, we are good. There's no problem. Number two, we have the resources and the answers within ourselves. Let me ask you, when you have the answer within you, what do I do to get it out? To get the answers out, what do I do? Ask questions, absolutely. So I need to be convinced that the person is whole, the person has the resources within themselves, the person actually makes the best possible choice given the circumstance. See, these are principles. So we're saying the person, given the resources that you have now, when you make a choice, when you make a decision, you're making it based on the information that you have. What happens a year down the road? Is it possible that I may have made the wrong choice? Yes, and I would learn from this. However, the principle says that when I ask you and you're about to make a decision, you're making it based on the best information that you possibly have. People have good intentions. Let me ask you this. If you stop and you ask someone for the traffic or the destination. Now, we don't do it now because we have maps and we have GPSs. But if you stop someone and you say, could you please tell me how to get to point B? And they one of two things. Either they would say, I don't know, or they begin to explain how to get to point B. Do you doubt for a second that they're telling the truth? So you're going ahead with the assumption that people have good intentions. You go on Google reviews and you see 5 stars, 4 stars, you see comments from people you don't even know. You go with the assumption that people have good intentions. So that's another principle. And the last one is change is inevitable. Change is going to happen anyways. Are you going to be the one who rides that wave and who takes advantage of the fact that change is happening, or do you fall behind? So these are some of the principles. I want you to think, if you're having a conversation with someone, just think of coach position, that's what we call it. If you're having a conversation with someone and say, I know that you're whole, I know that you have the resources within you, and I'm going to ask some questions to get that gold out. And I know that you have good intentions, and I know that you can make good decisions, and change is going to happen anyways. You notice how that would change. That would definitely change the way you view the person, and you want to get that gold out. Now, the brain conversation is so interesting. There's still a lot of debate. They say the triune brain. Has anyone heard of they call it the reptilian, mammalian, neocortex? That's one. And it's been, some people have refuted it. They also talk about this brain, they talk about this brain in the heart, and they talk about the gut brain. 3 brains. Somebody else, they said, oh, only this brain, and it controls everything else. So it's a debate that's taking place right now. Now, the first one I mentioned, I want you to think away from the theory of evolution. Just think of the metaphor, think of the simile that we have. They say reptilian brain is coming from the word reptile. Reptile could be a lizard. So you go to the zoo and you're checking the cage and you're thinking there's nothing there. Can I have a refund? Because there's nothing inside the cage. And then the zookeeper comes and feeds it, gives some food in the cage, and it begins to move. See, the reptile does not care about social gatherings or social attachments. All it cares about is the protection of the body. I want to survive. You know what else is a reptile? The sea turtle is a reptile. It goes to the ocean, digs a big hole, lays like 1,000 eggs, and then it says goodbye. Does it come back and say, I want to check on egg number 253 to see if it went to university? Or that doesn't happen. A reptile has no emotional attachment. So I want you to think, if you're thinking with a reptilian style, you care about survival. Are you thinking of Maslow? Maslow is like the physiology that you need to have the food and the safety first. Then we have mammalian. Giraffe is a mammal. Lion is a mammal. We are mammals. What's the difference? We care about our young, and we have that emotional attachment, and we care even about our grandchildren. We care about our attachment to the companies where we work. These are mammals. But then we talk about the neocortex. This is the creative part of the brain. See, if you want to have someone think creatively, if you remember at the beginning I asked you, I said, I want you to relax. Why? Because I'm trying to make you feel secure. Because if there was a lion outside, you're not going to be very creative. You will not. You will be, if you're being chased by a lion and I see you, like, open the door, you want to save your life, and I say, so what's your plan 5 years from, like, what do you mean 5 years from now? Save me, I'm about to be eaten by a lion. So you need to secure the environment to be able to get people to be creative. And that's when people think with the neocortex. The brain conversation is so interesting because I'm going to show you something. We used to think that the brain is fixed in stone. We used to think that the brain does not change. It seems that the experiences that we have could have an impact on your brain and its shape. I'll prove it to you with a study. Even a coaching conversation where you are creative and you're painting ways into the future of how things are going to be, that could impact your brain. Have you heard of this? The London taxi cab study, the black one, the black cab. You have. Anybody else? That was so interesting. These guys, here's what they do. They have to memorize, not relying on GPS, not relying on maps, 25,000 streets by heart and 20,000 landmarks by heart. And they have to recognize, how do I go from this point to this point by heart? And what's the shortest distance? And where do we have the most traffic? They call this test the knowledge. And usually it takes up to 3 years for them to study and to actually pass. Now, this was an opportunity for scientists to say, if we bring people who have done this test and they're working with the knowledge, and we bring people keeping the variables the same, meaning same age group, same geography, and then we say, let's have a look at their brain and notice if there's a difference. Do you think there was a difference? Yes, there was. The area of the brain, it's called the hippocampus. But here's what's interesting. People thought at the beginning that the hippocampus actually gets larger, gets bigger. It doesn't. It stays the same. However, resources, they get allocated from one side to the other, where you have the spatial and navigate. I'm not from Texas, it's not spatial, no, it's spatial and navigation ability. I'm losing my voice, I think. So they found that the resources, they get reallocated as a result of using the brain. This concept, now it's all over the internet. If you go and search, it's called neuroplasticity. So the brain, it's not fixed in stone. Based on experiences, the brain actually does wonders in terms of like when we said here, physically reshape itself. Now, I want you to see this, because they did the study for basketball players, and I told you before, if I come here before you and I'm about to give you a piece of information, I would never just give it without validation. So apparently there's been a study, basketball players, they're actually practicing the free shot. And they asked others, I want you to visualize doing the free shot and scoring. And then they had somebody else and they did nothing. You think they had different results? Yes. Obviously, if you're physically practicing, you will have the best outcome. But they found those who did nothing, no improvement. Mariam.
This is even more like in depth, but they did some research with people that got Botox, and especially around their mouth and their eyes. And they found that the people that had a lot of Botox around their eyes and their mouth, they didn't show empathy as much as people that had Botox, that didn't have Botox, because the Botox was actually impacting the brain, because your face knows before your brain to react. And so it's like one of those impulses. You can look this up. It's an impulse, and it actually changes the brain chemistry and like smooths it out. Smooths out the part of the brain. So it's actually exactly that, and it's even more than moving. It's Botox. Like it's
Yeah.
those things that freeze the muscles in your face.
Absolutely. So that's, again, that supports what we said about neuroplasticity. Absolutely. Here's what they found. When you visualize, and coaching is all about visualization and thinking of the future and the best possible outcome. So when you visualize, even though your muscles are not moving, this is back to the basketball example, brain scans show activity in many of the same areas used during the actual shooting. So can you imagine this? The power of visualization. And that's why when we talk about the neocortex, and that's the creative part of the brain that's able to create outcome. I could ask you to, I'm not going to do it with this voice, but I'm going to say, if I ask you to close your eyes and try to imagine being on the beach and walking on the sand and the palm trees around you, you eventually begin to smell the ocean and you're not even there. So the brain is, subhanallah, subhanallah, وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. Now the coaching conversation, there are certain elements. If you are to go with something practical, I'm going to give you something even more practical. But the coaching conversation, it begins with building rapport. Okay? So building rapport is simply having that personal connection with the person. Scientifically, it's been proven that you're sitting with someone and you speak in the same way, you mimic the language that they talk. Now, keep in mind, you don't want to sound like a parrot. You want to have a delay. If they cross their leg, wait a few seconds and then do the same. If they put their arm on the table, wait a few seconds, do the same. And eventually, they develop this liking for you, scientifically proven. And that's how you can build rapport. If you're a manager and your employee tells you, I had a great weekend. We went to the beach and we had a great time. And you're like, so which deal are you planning to close next week? Are you building rapport? You care about your numbers? The person was saying that they went with the family to the beach. If you want to build rapport, you would ask them, how did it go? Did you have a good time? That's how you build rapport with someone. Now, the second element is this, active listening. If somebody says, I like my job, they like their job. Someone says, I love my job. You notice the difference? Like, love, what a difference. So if you're actively listening, you would be able to tell the difference. There's something else. If somebody says, I really like helping people. Helping people is something I live by. When I help someone, how many times have they mentioned the word help? That tells you something about they have a passion for helping people. Are you actively listening to what's being said and what's not being said? Active listening. So the first thing, you build rapport if you want to have a good coaching conversation with your employees, even with your family. So you build rapport, and then you have to listen to what's being said. You have to listen to how things are being said. There's something else, which is the essence of coaching. Ask powerful questions, always. And the best question, here's a little secret. The best question comes from here, from what you listen to. Don't have a list of questions and just, you want to just ask them and okay, we're done with our coaching session. Never do this. What's being said? Someone says, oh, I went on vacation and I had a great time. Oh, where did you go? See, that's a powerful question. They told me they went on vacation. Where did you go? We went to Cuba. Did you go alone or with the family? Oh, I went with my mother-in-law and my wife. And just keep asking questions like this. And you build rapport and you show that you're actively listening, and then you continue to ask these questions until we figure out what action do we need to take. You ask that question. So now, to get you from this point to this point, you ask a question that says, on a scale from 1 to 10, where are you today? And they would say 2. What would it take to get you to a 6? What do we need to do? Or you say, suppose we are 6 months into the future and the situation is exactly the way you want it. What did you do? What have you done to get to that success that you wanted? So that you would take action. And crucial, Dr. Khalid Sultan knows about this, accountability. So yes, there's guidance, but you have to be accountable. That's why coaching yourself can be challenging. I have a slide on this. If you have this person whom you are accountable to, you're more likely to succeed. If you're accountable to yourself and your inside will always seek to protect you and validate the excuses that you have. That would be the issue. Now, this is Liz Wiseman. I attended one of her sessions in Las Vegas, and she wrote a book called Multiplier. And she said, instead of quadrupling or doubling your workforce, why don't you tap more into the brain power? Why don't you, get your people, treat them differently. Coach your people. Instead of just saying, I want to hire more bodies, can I possibly tap into the creative minds of my employees and get them to be a lot more creative and they come up with ideas? Simon Sinek, if you know him, he would say, think about this. I love it's like a 45-second clip all over the internet. Someone walks into your office, you walk into someone's office, and you tell them this. You haven't achieved your numbers for the past 5 months. I really can't guarantee what the future is going to look like. How creative you think the person is going to be? You just threatened their livelihood. You threatened their family. You threatened their job. You sent them back from the neocortex and the creative part of the brain. You sent them back to someone who says, I want to put food on the table. Think of it this way. You walk into someone's office, someone walks into your office, and you say, you haven't made your numbers for the past 5 months. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help you? Please.
So I understand this on an individual level, a one-to-one conversation, right? But in the recent times, let's say in the recent months, right, there have been some news, for example, companies would say, in the next year, we're going to do restructuring and lay off 13,000 people. How these 13,000 people are going to become team members within that time?
It's a tough question, given what's happening in the economy. I would say, I would need to ask you, if you came to me with this problem, I would say, what is it that you need to do so you stand out from the crowd and you distinguish yourself from the noise? Similar to how I did with Eddie, when I could have easily said, my name is Louei, I'd like to introduce myself. No, I thought outside the box. And I said, okay, so you take breaks? Let's take a break. I promise you I won't talk about anything business. I'll talk about something personal. And we became friends. What I'm saying is, yes, you could encounter situations like this. Always ask, what do I need to do so my name is not on the list? I know it's bad, but what can you do? Oracle now, as we talked, they're letting go of a lot of people. So these are some of the questions. Don't memorize them. If they're not applicable to the conversation that you're having with someone, don't use them. But it's a sample of certain things that you can ask. Like, what outcome do you want? I mean, I want you to think, if you ask yourself these questions about a challenge that you're having, one of the most magical questions is what else? If you're ever stuck, just say what else? You wouldn't believe how much deeper you go. Like, okay, so you gave me the answer, and I was like, what else? And you gave me something, what else? Well, until you're sick of me. And then, so you ask what's getting in the way. So you want to get there, you're not able to. What is it that's getting in your way? What's the obstacle? What options do you see? What will you do next? We're trying to create action, and then we hold them accountable. Keep in mind, accountability does not mean threat. So they say, I plan to visit 20 customers next week. If we're talking about sales, I plan to visit 20 customers. Now, next week you see them in the hall. Did you visit those 20 customers? Like you're asking as if you want to say, why? I'm confident that you didn't. No, you want to say, I recognize we've been so busy. Did you have a chance to do that? That's how you have to come across. You need people thinking with the creative mind. You don't want to send them back to, fearing for their livelihood. Now, this is a nice analogy because coaching is the wheel that steers the ship. If it's one-on-one and you tell me, I want to go to island A. Here's what I do. As a coach, I'm going to sit in the ship and we sail and I'm holding the steering. Go to A. And I go to A. And we find out, let's have a conversation first. Why is A important? Why do you want to go to A? You explain the situation, why it's A. And then we're heading to A based on your direction. And then you notice B. And you say, oh, Louei, turn and go to B. I'm like, no problem. I mean, you're the boss because you have the resources within you. But then I try to remind you. I would say, but initially when we had the conversation, you told me you wanted to go to A and that's very important to you. Any reason why you want to go to B? Well, it seems they're having a lot of fun and I want to go to B. Would that serve the purpose that we set sail to? Like I would try to coach them and to guide them, but it's their agenda. If they insist I'm going to B, I will. But my job is to reconnect them again to the vision. Why are we doing this in the first place? My job is to be that guide and hold them accountable to the decision that they made. I like this one. If you want to build a ship, don't rally up the people to collect wood and assign them tasks and work. What you want to do is have them long for the endless amnesty of the sea. So I read this story. I think probably it's fake, but I loved it. It was about NASA, where one of the high officials went for a visit and they saw the janitor, a very honorable position. And they asked him, what do you do? You know what the answer was? I help put a man on the moon. So regardless of what you do, you are connected to that vision. I help put a man on the moon. That's someone who's connected to the vision. Now, about coaching oneself. Is it doable? Is it beneficial? Yes. You can create some kind of awareness. You could have some bad habits that you want to change. Yeah, you could have that conversation with yourself, and you could create some action. However, blind spots can be uncovered probably when you have a coach, when you have an outside person helping you figure out what's happening on the inside. Helps with the accountability, helps with being objective and a sounding board. So keep in mind, your brain will always try to protect you. Your brain, whenever you give it an excuse, you'll say, yeah, I really don't want to go to the gym because I don't have the time. Okay, you don't have the time. Like, I don't have time, I'm not going to do it. But when you have someone like Dr. Khalid Sultan, you say, I don't think you do. Then it's a completely different story. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala rasulillah. Sallu ala rasulillah. I was mesmerized when, this is the best part. See, what I aim to show you briefly, coaching is huge, and be careful, by the way. If someone tries to sell you these gimmicks and I can change your brain, pay me $5,000, I can be a life coach and all, don't fall for these things. Learn the science behind it, learn why it's beneficial, learn how you can benefit, but don't fall prey to all these schemes and scams that they have out there. Now, I wanted to see the way Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was dealing with the Sahaba. The first thing I noticed, and I did some research on this, and I had some ideas, but I wanted to validate. Have you not noticed that he begins the question by questioning them? He asks a question. Can anyone think of an example? Did you cheat my look at this. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Absolutely. Atadruna man al-muflis. He begins by asking a question. And he doesn't give the answer immediately. He says, he waits. And al-muflisu fina man la dirham lahu wa la dinar. Al-muflis doesn't have a dirham or dinar. He waits for the answer. So he's invoking the creative brain to think. Jazakallahu khairan. And then يأتي يوم القيامة بصلاة. And Sheikh Adnan, translate. This was explained by Sheikh Adnan a couple of days back, I think, or the khatira that we had, is who is the bankrupt? The bankrupt, they answered, he's the one who comes at the day of judgment. Sorry, the translation is not working. Okay, they asked who is the bankrupt. I think with the voice being lost, that's what's happening. You guys know what the hadith is. Alhamdulillah. We'll go to the next one. Okay. Jazakallahu khairan, to honor Dr. Mahmoud al-Saqqa, of course, and Dr. Muhammad. Now, so we have a lot of examples like man al-muflis, atadruna man al-muflis. Do you know who is the bankrupt? And he waits for the answers, and then he tells them. Now, when I say he tells them, this is Rasulullah. So we take it. Ma atakum ar-rasulu fakhuduh. He gives you something, you take it. A coach is a different story. I'm just saying, can you see? And I'm going to give you some examples. Khalid, how much time do we have? Because I want to make sure. Okay, sounds good. He uses imagination and he combines multiple tactics. Watch this hadith. When he begins with a question and he says, إِنَّ مِنَ الشَّجَرِ شَجَرَةٌ لَا يَسْقُطُ وَرَقُهَا. There's a tree. See, notice there's like suspense. He's creating this imagination. There's suspense. There's a tree that the leaves don't fall. وَإِنَّهَا مِثْلُ الْمُسْلِمِ. It is like a Muslim. فَحَدِّثُونِي مَا هِيَ. Tell me, what do you think? See, he's asking a question, he's building the imagination, and then what happens afterwards, that conversation, Abdullah ibn Umar, he said, I just want you to think, look at the dialogue that's taking place. A simple question with imagination has led to this discussion taking place between Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh and his son. So Abdullah ibn Umar says, in my heart, I was thinking it's the palm tree, but I didn't say anything. So his father tells him, so why didn't you say anything? He said, well, I mean, it's you and Abu Bakr in the audience. Why would I even say anything? You notice how it created some kind of dynamics of a group discussion? Unbelievable. أَتَدْرُونَ مَنِ الْمُفْلِسِ? What is the tree that is similar to the Muslim? Now here's another imagination. Here's what it says. Watch how we always in coaching, we say, just suppose that, look at what Rasulullah said, alayhi salatu wasalam, أَرَأَيْتُمْ لَوْ أَنَّ نَهْرًا بِبَابِ أَحَدِكُمْ. Just suppose that there was rivers passing by your doors. يَغْتَسِلُ مِنْهُ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ. You wash from this river every day 5 times. Would any filth remain? He's asking them. This is a question. So just suppose there's these rivers passing by your doors. Would any filth remain? And he waits for the answer. And they say, لا يبقى من درنه شيء. No filth would actually remain. He says, فَذَلِكَ مَثَلُ الصَّلَوَاتِ الْخَمْسِ يَمْحُ اللَّهُ بِهِنَّ الْخَطَايَا. This is like your 5 daily prayers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala erases your sins with them. You see, he could have easily said, by the way, here's what happens. No, look at, he is coaching them. Just suppose there's this river, and he's invoking the imagination and the creative brain. Alayhi salatu wassalam. Gradual learning. We have the educators in the audience, and they recognize the value of gradual learning. Now, Yusuf, what is the formula for change? Beckard. Remember, D multiplied by V multiplied by Fs. Fs is first steps. I picked on you because you asked the question last time about this one. So gradual learning, it's you do something and then you do something. It has to be bite-sized. If I give you something all at once, it's not going to work. It has to be gradual. Watch what happened. He sent Mu'adh to Yemen. And he says, "Ud'uhum ila shahadati an la ilaha illallah wa anni rasulullah." Call them that there's no God except Allah and that I'm the messenger of Allah. Did he just line up everything else? No. Here's what he said. فَإِنْهُمْ أَطَاعُوا ذَلِكَ. Should they listen, you move on to the next one. So you get the first one done, so it's a gradual learning. You get the first one done, and then فَإِنْهُمْ أَطَاعُوا, if they obey you, فَأَعْلِمْهُمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ افترض عَلَيْهِمْ خَمْسُ صَلَوَاتٍ. Then tell them about salah. If they listen and they obey, then tell them about zakah. You notice the gradual learning. The best coach ever. Visual aid. Now this, I have 3 examples, not for the visual to finalize with. Visual aid. I'm going to show, has anyone heard of the wheel of life? The wheel of life. Okay. So here's a visual aid that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used. He said, عن عبد الله بن مسعود, خط لنا رسول الله خطا. So Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam he drew a line in the sand. خط لنا خطا. ثم قال, he said, هذا سبيل الله. This is the way to Allah. This is the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ثم خط خطوطا يمين وشمال, right and left. And he said, هذه سبل. These are different ways. كل سبيل منها. Each one of these ways has a shaitan. Satan. Shaitan يدعو له. So you can imagine the visualization that's taking place. Here's a line. We have multiple paths, but this is the path of Allah. On each line, you have a shaitan calling. You want to stick to the path of Allah. And then he read, وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا. This is my straight path. فَاتَّبِعُوهُ. Follow. This is the verse from the Quran. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ. Do not follow the other paths. فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ. It takes you into different directions. فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. You would move away from the straight path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he gave you a visual, and I'm going to give you a visual as well. And then something else happened. We all know the hadith where he said, عِظْنِي, انصحني, أوصني يا رسول الله. What did he say? لا تغضب. Do not get angry. Again, do not get angry. Again, why? He focused on لا تغضب. Is it possibly for that specific man because he knows that the advice that he wants? Is it possibly advice for all of us because this would move the needle, as we say, move the needle in the right direction? We have a hadith, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالصَّرْعَةِ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّدِيدُ مَنْ يَمْلِكُ نَفْسَهُ عِنْدَ الْغَضَبِ. A strong person is the one who is able to control himself when angered. There's another hadith, لَا تَغْضَبْ وَلَكَ الْجَنَّةِ. Do not get angry, and he's promising you al-Jannah. Watch this. This is what we call the wheel of life. And the way you do it is we kind of agree on, I mean, if you want to create your own names, you can. But we all have health, career, love, spirituality, family, money, fun, friends. And I ask you and I say, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, I want you to scale where do you think your satisfaction level is with each one of these. So you look at it, and it's going to look like something like this. It's a visual. Think of the line that was drawn. So this is a visual. And then if I ask you, so looking at this visual, which one would have the biggest impact? You might say, is it money? Because if I have more money, that would mean I can spend more time with my friends, so that would enhance the friend. It's up to you. That's something that you would do. But I want you to think. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he told him, La taghdab, he knows that La taghdab could be the money, could be on the wheel of life. This would have the biggest impact on his life. So he used visuals, he used concepts similar to this by giving the advice. He could have said, La taghdab, and then he gives another advice and another advice. He didn't. He gave the advice that would have the biggest impact on his life. This one is so interesting. We have something called coaching presence, which is you need to be available for your clients, and you need to be, I just finished a coaching session here, I put it behind me, and I move on to something else. I want you to think about this. Rasulullah, Allahumma salli wa sallim alayh. When we have something that has to do with najasa, impurity, and he was okay. And something that had to do with Surah Al-Baqarah, and he was upset. Have I created sufficient suspense? So najasa, he was okay. Surah Al-Baqarah, he was not, because he had the right kind of presence for the situation. Sheikh Adnan was talking about the Arabi who went to the masjid and he urinated in the masjid. What did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam do? He said, they jumped at him and he said, no, let him finish and take some water and pour some water on the filth. That's what you need to do. Because he recognized, if I punish him, that's not what's needed right now. What's needed is education. So there's najasa, and the way he dealt with it was phenomenal. Watch this one here. عن جابر بن عبد الله معاذ bin Jabal, he was leading salah. And in one of the salawat, he read Surah Al-Baqarah. So one of the Sahaba, he couldn't. It was too much for him. So he left and he prayed alone. Mu'adh alayhi ridallah, he called him munafiq. He's a hypocrite for doing something like that. Why wouldn't he pray with me? And this man, he went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and he said, Ya Rasulullah, inna qawmun na'malu bi aydina. We work hard with our camels and with our hands. And Mu'adh prayed yesterday and he read Surah Al-Baqarah. So I went and I prayed alone and he said I was a hypocrite. He's complaining to Rasulullah. He said, I'm a hypocrite. فقال النبي, and he was upset. يا معاذ أفتان أنت؟ يا معاذ أفتان أنت؟ يا معاذ أفتان, 3 times. And he was disappointed in what happened. And he said, يا معاذ اقرأ والشمس وضحاها. The short ones. اقرأ وسبح اسم ربك الأعلى ونحوها. And its likes. Is this not being able to handle perfectly the situation in accordance with what's needed at that stage? Now, this is the last one. And this sums it up. And when I fed this into AI actually would not let go. I kept saying, let's talk some more about, no. He said, the example that you've given is phenomenal. Keep with it. So I'm going to show you what this is. The young man who went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and he said, give me permission to commit adultery. This is unbelievable. Because the Sahaba, they were disappointed, they were upset, hold on. And they said, don't speak. What are you talking about? But what does Rasulullah do? Watch building rapport. Bring him closer. See, this is building rapport. Bring him closer. Sit him down. He sat down. And then this is what coaching is all about, which is trying, just suppose. Asking the question of just suppose. Suppose this was your mother. Would you accept? And then what does he answer? أتحبه لأمك؟ قال لا والله جعلني الله فدائك. ولا الناس, even people would not love it for their moms. And then he mentioned the sister, the aunt, al-khala, al-amma. So he's trying to build a different perception of the situation. This is what we call in coaching reframing. He reframed the situation completely. So, and then Rasulullah alayhi salatu wassalam, لا والله لا يحبونه لخالاتهم فوضع يده عليه. So now we're getting into the action and we're getting into the accountability piece. وضع يده عليه وقال اللهم اغفر ذنبه وطهر قلبه وحصن فرجه. So he made dua to protect him from all of this. قال فلم يكن بعد ذلك الفتى يلتفت إلى شيء. He never went back to this. So I went to AI and I said, please tell me, how is this hadith? Now I knew the answer, but I wanted to see if, am I missing anything? Here's what AI said. Building rapport. He asked him, he invited the young man to come closer. Deep listening. Heard him, he didn't judge him. He didn't say, what are you talking about? How could you? No, he listened. He invited him and he heard him, and then he started to ask reflective questions. These are the reframing questions. And then he brought him new awareness, helped him to see a different kind of perspective. And then the action, he inspired a different choice. He came with his mindset on one thing, and now he's thinking something completely different. And I mean, what more accountability do you want than Rasulullah touching your heart and making dua for you? Would you ever go back to that? There's no way. There's no way. Now, if I began with saying, here's the definition of coaching, it wouldn't have made sense. But I want to show you what the ICF is the International Coaching Federation. This is the definition. Partnering with clients in a thought-provoking. Thought-provoking happens here in the neocortex. Creative process inspires people so they can maximize their personal and their professional potential. This is the official definition. Now, here's a little homework for you. These are some of the questions that you could start to experiment with. I want you from the conversations, because we usually jump into wanting to fix people's lives. So I want you to give less advice and ask more questions. Questions like this. So what outcome do you want? Just think about this, when you're having a conversation with somebody, they'll be a little surprised that you're acting like this. However, try it. They'll like you more. So what outcome do you want? What else? And what options do you see? What have you thought about? What options do you have? And things like that. Now, I want you to keep in mind, the very first conversation I had with the lady at Ericsson, she got in touch with the inside. She wanted the decision to be made from here, from the heart, because this is the decision that actually sticks. The battleground has to be inside. See, if you try to force me, if I say, you wake up every morning and you go to the gym after Fajr, it's not going to happen. But if I ask you, so when would be the best time that works with your schedule? And you tell me, I'm like, how might you commit to that? See, I want it to come from the inside. Because if I come slashing at you, if Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam slashed at the person, we wouldn't have achieved this result. So I want to show you the very final slide. And it's fantastic. Here's the last one. If an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. If broken by an inside force from the inside out, life begins. Great things always begin from the inside. Jazakumullahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum. We have 2 minutes for questions. I'm sure you have no questions. Confident. No, they have no questions. Any questions? Please. Okay, so there's too many resources available. I can share the one I did. It was with Ericsson out of British Columbia. They give you the education to do ACC, which is Associate Certified Coach. And then if you have sufficient number of hours, you move into PCC, Professional Certified Coach. You add more hours, you become MCC, which is Master Certified Coach. So you need to find a program that's actually accredited. So you can search easily and you would find those.
And is it regulated the same way that like doctors and other people are regulated?
Excellent question, because I did mention this before. We are not authorized to work with people who have trouble. For example, psychiatric issues, we cannot. So it's regulated by the ICF and different bodies. However, you go through the hours, you go through tests and examinations and mentorship and so on, but you cannot work with someone who might need medical attention. No.
Okay, and what happens if you like coach someone and you're accredited, you have your MCC, and then later on they come and say like you strayed them the wrong way, something like that. How do we protect ourselves?
Well, you probably would want to have insurance to protect you against something like this. I think it hardly happens because usually it's self-awareness. So you don't push them to do anything. You're asking questions simply. You hold them accountable for what they want. So I can't possibly think of someone coming back and suing you for something they decided to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I think that is Aisha time, so I'm going to ask a question and then say something at the end. If you enjoyed this topic specifically from Akh Louei Ali, Professor Louei Ali, can you put your hand up? And if you didn't, you don't need to put your hand up. Just for me. Okay. Jazakumullah khair. Round of applause for
Yes.
we'll call Dan and Chris. مين هيقدم فينا؟
الله يعافيك ويبارك فيك.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
شيخ خالد استووا استقيموا اعتدلوا تراصوا حاذوا بين المناكب سدوا الخلل close the gaps استووا أقبلوا على الله بقلوبكم الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين الحمد
كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن